Wait for it. Any second now.
Are you just streaming it to Totally Local, or is it going anywhere else?
We're going live right now. Ah, yes. It's the vacation version. This is for Aaron. We put a little steel drums in there. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Totally Local. There we go. Welcome to Totally Local. Totally Local podcast, full of colorful characters and interesting local businesses in and around the Monmouth County and Ocean County area. That's right, it's the Jersey Shore, baby. And we're talking about the real locals, the people that are around here all the time, every day, in and out. Except for Aaron, who's on vacation, a much-deserved vacation. How's it going, Aaron?
I don't know if we're supposed to tell people that I'm on vacation. Like, if I
it's...
leave New Jersey, am I allowed back?
You'll see the signs.
What are the rules of engagement?
Don't go through Seabright. You'll see somebody holding a sign saying Benny's go home. But I think if you have the right license plate, they'll let you back in. With us this week, Jeff Plate from Asbury Park Brewery. Hello, Jeff. How's it going?
It's going well. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I mean, it's a little cloudy out, so I'm a little jealous about what I'm seeing in the background from Aaron's locale. But he's a hardworking guy, so he deserves it. Speaking.
Listen, I've got my bathing suit on, but I brought this shirt to make it look official. So I'm wearing this shirt for our 30 minutes now, and then I'm jumping back in the pool or going to the beach.
Is it muggy at least? Is it muggy? Is it dry? What's going on down there?
It rained for 2 days, like torrential downpours. We have a lake in the backyard of the house we're renting here in the Outer Banks of North Carolina, and a couple more hours of rain and the lake would have been in our pool. It was grimy, but now it's 80 degrees, low humidity, sunny, little overcast.
Perfect.
But it's good. But life in the Outer Banks is totally different. Like, they don't know what coronavirus is. And they don't wear masks down here. It's a little bit scary. Like, oh, look at all these weirdos without wearing masks. It's kind of nutty. We're not into going out and doing a lot of that, but even in the supermarkets, nobody's wearing a mask. It's kind of crazy.
You're keeping your respective social distance going on there. Aaron,
yeah, we're doing what we feel comfortable with doing.
That's
right.
Good. That's what anyone should do.
Staying away from everybody. Let's just keep to ourselves and bring it to the house, and we're all good.
Perfect.
Well, it seems like most of those states that kind of took a pretty lax approach to it are still doing fine now, right? Let me just check the news. Oh, wait a minute.
Some of them not so good. Arizona not so good. Florida,
Florida not so good.
Florida not so good, right? You have to self-quarantine if you go to Florida. Like, I have somebody that I know is diverting plans to come to Outer Banks instead of go to Florida next week.
Yeah, I read a story about a nurse that, she was quarantining the whole time, and then she went out with like a group of she was rolling like 15 deep going to like the local bar, and then boom, she got the Rona with everybody else. And it's like, dip your toe in, don't just go hog wild. Like, a couple people go out, see what's out there. But, I'm do whatever you want, but just stay the hell away from me if you're doing that kind of stuff.
There you go.
So Jeff, the last time and maybe the first time we spoke was right at the beginning of this. You were the first business. I knew that if the apocalypse was coming, I'm like, I need beer to survive the apocalypse. So you were the first business where I was just like, I don't need toilet paper. I'll get a bidet. And I don't need cereal. All I need is just make sure I have enough beer to last me at least, a month. So that's when I believe I first, met you. And you were a little pensive. I was wondering just what was that like? What was your journey with the brewery from the beginning of this? Kind of catch us up on what you've been doing, man.
Okay, so I think probably the most important thing to mention is the distinction between a brewery like Asbury Park Brewery and a lot of the other ones throughout the state of New Jersey that are more dependent on on-premise consumption. Mm-hmm. So a lot of breweries, they have like a smaller brew system, and the bulk of their revenue comes through their tasting room. So you want people to come in, hang out for as long as possible, try a bunch of different beers, etc. So that's not really our model. We are way more manufacturing and distribution. of our products, and we've got some great distribution partners that get our beer into hundreds of bars and liquor stores across the state. So when we were advised by the ABC that we could do pickup beers, it was great. One thing, I love to be able to, serve the local community if they need to get Asbury Park beer and they can't find it for whatever reason, sure, come down. But the other side of it was, we were continuing to brew here. Obviously, the brewing industry, sanitization is like paramount. So, they say that brewing is actually, 10% brewing and 90% cleaning. So, the idea of having the public do, and also at that point, we did see an uptick in can sales. So we were really producing, almost exclusively Blonde and Sea Dragon, which are our two flagship beers. So a lot of the guests to the brewery would be like, all right, well, what do you have other than Blonde and Sea Dragon? And after, 2 weeks of the quarantine, it was like, not a lot. We kind of went through all of the inventory that we had that wasn't those two beers because that's all that we were producing. So, it was people wanted like a similar brewery experience where there would be like, 12 different kinds of beer that they could pick from. And that kind of ended quickly because people ran through all that stuff. So really they were coming in and they're like, all right, all we have is Blonde and Sea Dragon. Yeah, well, I can get that at the store down the street. So then we were kind of like, all right, well then go get it at the store down the street.
Go for it, buddy.
We'll just sort of like, hole up in here and just keep like that really tight sort of like quarantine bubble. And that's what we did for most of the quarantine in terms of like the curbside pickup and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to say when I showed up, epic shouts to Michael Merrill, local DJ to the stars. He really turned me on to the stout. Like I was a Sea Dragon guy, and then I like the Naive Melody, which is seasonal or it's only in smaller batches.
It's coming out next week. Just to interject, Naive Melody is coming out next week.
Nice.
Yes, great, awesome. I'm so happy about that. So when he recommended the stout, and apparently it's good. My wife was reading about how we have a 6-month-old at home, and she was reading how stouts are actually good for breastfeeding. Not a lot of them, maybe, you have one, every so often you're good. And she wanted me to get some of those. So I got some of those. Mike Merrill recommended them. And I'm not a stout person. I thought I wasn't, but the stout is good too. So it's hard for me to go in there now and be like, what do I want to drink? But the stout was a good quarantine beer for a while. And then as it got warmer out, the Sea Dragon, was definitely good. And it's nice to know that you said next week it's coming out.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Yes.
It's interesting that you mentioned that you're kind of in this sort of you're more about brewing the beer. You do have like there's a tasting room. There's some like a venue, like it's a small venue, but you're in this strange spot. Like, where do you fall as far as the spectrum of, are you allowed to at this point have like outdoor seating? Is that something that you're interested in starting to do right away, or are you just kind of gonna wait and hold off on that?
All right, so the short answer is we're gonna come get Blonde or Sea Dragon, which is available like almost everywhere.
Yeah.
Around here at least. So yeah, we're taking like a couple beats before we open up the outside patio. And again, like if you've been to the brewery, you've got to walk through like the entire production floor to get from the loading dock / patio, whatever you want to call it, to the bathroom. So things are opening up. Everyone is very got high spirits about it. We're still a little bit cautious about how many people we let into our building. I mean, even if it's just coming in to use the bathroom, it's still something that's like, all right, we have our employees to look out for, and we have all of this beer. And if, what would happen if, someone tested positive that we knew was in our production facility that walked, within, 8 feet of our canning line or whatever it is. It's something that, we've received some guidance that we're sort of allowed to choose our own adventure and open how we want to open. Obviously not inside. We can't have like shows or anything in the tasting room, but, with the loading dock. So, we're still figuring out exactly how we want to do that, where we're comfortable. We make sure that everybody that works here is protected, that all of our inventory is protected, and can still get out and open the loading dock. So, in all honesty, we were going to try to take a crack at it this weekend. It looks like it's going to be thunderstorms. My weather app is just thunderstorms for the next like 12 days or something like that.
Yeah, it's looking
but so we're like, all right, well, look, if it's not going to be a beautiful weekend, then I don't really see the point of getting open. And we're lucky that we're able to take that kind of approach because, like I said, the tasting room is awesome. It generates good revenue for us. But it's a small percentage of what we do here. So we can kind of take a wait and see approach with it, and it doesn't affect us too badly because, by far all of our revenue comes from distribution.
So you've mentioned how you've I think it was on the site, it was on Instagram somewhere where I read like kind of what you're saying right now, which is you love our beer. You don't have to come to here. You could get it, anywhere around here. If you go to like a liquor store, most of them, as I've seen, have it. How far, how far do you distribute? Like, is it the entire state? Like, what's the furthest place that has your beer?
We're distributed throughout the entire state. A lot of it is clustered around here. Like at the brand Asbury Park resonates, across New Jersey. But Monmouth Ocean, Middlesex County, we do like a majority of our business there. It's sort of clustered locally, and then it goes out and becomes more of like a craft brand. Like I feel like particularly on the Jersey Shore, we've sort of moved beyond the status of like a small like artisanal craft brand, and we're outperforming some national brands here in our backyard that was that we never really thought we would outperform. So it's been really cool, and our beer has kind of grown to a larger level than that. But then you see it in like the sort of farther counties up in North Jersey and South Jersey where it becomes more of like a specialty item. But we're distributed throughout New Jersey. We are distributed in the 5 boroughs on a pretty limited scale. That's a very competitive market. And then we've got distribution in 9 counties of Eastern Pennsylvania right now, including Philadelphia. So you can find us in craft beer bars in and around Philadelphia as well.
So Aaron, you're out of state right now, but you're coming back. You've mentioned before that there's employees that want to work from home. There's some that want to come in. Kind of what we were just touching on as far as opening it up and having people come in. Are you going to start doing that next week? You think you're going to do that when you get back, like Monday or Tuesday, where people are going to come into your office, or what are you going to do?
It's such a weird. So it's just weird. Let's just leave it at that, right? It's just weird.
True.
And I was originally going to beg, plead with my staff to come back next week. But I did just push that back to July 6th.
Sounds good.
I just felt that with where everything is at and the way things are opening up, I want to see more restaurants get open. I want to see some of these limitations get lifted in the next week or so. And hopefully they do. And then July 6th is when I'm going to push to bring everybody back. Everybody's working well remotely and from home. It's really just getting that community back together again, back in the office is what I want. But for right now, we're going to push it back 2 weeks and then see what happens. But I know a lot of small businesses are having some trouble bringing their employees back. People are still afraid. People are still collecting some decent unemployment for another couple of weeks with that additional $600 a week. So it's become a challenge for a lot of business owners of how to approach it and how to handle it and how to get things done. And at the end of the day, it's, whatever's best for the business has to kind of fly in these situations. Department of Labor, New Jersey put out some guidance about bringing people back and what the limitations are if an employee does not want to come back, of how that can be approached. So dol.gov, and search for that guidance of return to work is going to be the best practice, because that ultimately is going to determine what happens if an employer gets sued, for overstepping their boundaries. The Department of Labor is going to kind of guide that.
Yeah, I mean, the governor's going to sue Asbury Park, so any business in there, I don't know if you chip in, I don't know if there's like a pot that you just have to put money into, but that was some big news coming around. I guess, they kind of backed off because nobody wants to be sued, I don't think. But
no, he won. They won
actually.
What was that?
He won the injunction. Yeah, he sued not for like monetary damages, but to have an injunction to prevent them from opening indoors, which was contrary to the executive order or whatever. So, but that went through. I think it was like 45 minutes from when they filed it to when the injunction was issued. So that was a slam dunk for the governor on that one.
Go Phil.
He was not going to go without a fight. Hey Jeff, are you a lawyer or something?
I was just going to touch.
Thank
on
you for asking. You see how I tilted the camera on my computer? I got my degree.
I was just gonna bring that up. Now, what came first, the brewery or your attorneyship? Like which one was in the works first?
So the brewery was in the works first. So my first career as a musician, I went to school in Ocean Township and lived in Wanamassa, and was in some bands. Some of them had varying degrees of success. And I moved back to Asbury Park in 2005 to play music, set up a little recording studio. And during that time, that was when like Brooklyn Brewery and craft beer was starting to really, really gain momentum. And living here, I was like, it's such a cool town. Like, we should have a Asbury Park brewery here. Like, they have a Brooklyn brewery. So I started working on it back then. The law was a lot different. It was a lot more restrictive. You really needed to have, a couple decades in the beverage industry, as well as a couple $1 million laying around to open a brewery and get going. But I did register some of the intellectual property rights for the name Asbury Park Brewery back then. And, just kind of maintained those things as well as I could, the ones that I could, and just, keep paying the, whatever it was, $30 for 3 years on GoDaddy for the web domain, that kind of stuff. But anyway, in the interim, I wasn't able to get that going then for obvious reasons. I was a lot younger, the law. So I decided to go to law school, and I went to law school. I graduated, I passed the bar, I started practicing law for a couple years when New Jersey changed the brewery laws, and suddenly you could self-distribute, which means you didn't have to go through a distributor. I could sell a keg of beer directly to a restaurant. And the bigger one for most of the breweries that have opened since was you could have a tasting room and charge customers retail price for a glass of beer. So the margins on brewing beer and then charging $5 for a glass of it is pretty wild. So that being the case, I decided to dust off a business plan for Asbury Park Brewery. I approached some people that I knew through the music industry, that had some money to invest and were interested in the city and in beer, particularly Bob McClin, who founded Crush Management. They manage like huge recording artists, Green Day, Fall Out Boy, Weezer, like just basically you name a huge band and Bob has had something to do with it, it feels like.
Wow.
But he's a New Jersey guy. He was in a punk band just like I was. And a huge beer guy as well. So when we connected and I sent him the investor deck and then finally the full form business plan, he was, he wanted to get involved heavily. So it was all private placement funding through people in the music industry that got the brewery open. And then, finally after this like long kind of circuitous route, we got open August 2016. And yeah, the rest is history. We ended up signing with a great distributor on the Jersey Shore, Shore Point Distributing, a little less than a year after we opened. And after that, the volume of business we did really exploded.
Wow. Jeff, there's a term I use when people are good at business, and I call it businessy. And you are very businessy. You seem to not only like be the Svengali of breweries. You were like, hey, this is Asbury Park. I love it. It's eventually going to catch on. And you kind of had this idea to have a brewery before you could really do what you're doing right now. Right?
Yeah. So it was definitely a right place, right time too. I certainly can't take credit for the popularity of Asbury Park at all. I think that's got a lot to do with why the brand is so successful, because Asbury Park is. But no, it was seeing the opportunity and sort of like the confluence of, Asbury Park going up and craft beer going up. And really, I just found myself like right at that intersection. So it was an easy sell to get the investment. And then every keg of beer I've sold has been an easy sell, because you speak to a bar manager or a purchaser and say, this is, craft beer from Asbury Park. And they're like, boom, I'll try it.
That's
And
awesome.
the fact that we make good beer means that not only will they try it, but then they order it again once they kick the keg. A lot of people are able to get in the door, but it's all about the quality of the product to maintain those lines.
What's the deal with, okay, so you have a lot of different varieties, which I like. And, there's been this over however the decade, however long it's been, like IPAs have become like popular. Why do some breweries just it's like one IP, like they have a many different beers, but like all of them are IPAs. Like, is an IPA easier to make, or are they just kind of riding the wave of like, this is a popular type of beer, so we're all just going to have IPAs now? Like, why are there so many?
Okay, so there's a couple of things. One, IPAs are popular, so people do like them, and you will sell them. There was definitely how people make hot sauces that are just so insanely hot, and you wonder why. Like, people started doing that with IPAs. Like, let's just make it as strong and hoppy as possible, just to see how gross we can make it. But the other thing, so it is a little bit easier to make. Another thing is that, your volume as a brewery is really restricted by how long a beer takes to ferment. So lagers take a really long time to ferment. IPAs take a really short time to ferment. So the faster you can turn those tanks over, the more different kinds of beers you can make. But I also, I use music terms a lot to kind of describe things, particularly in beer, because there's a lot of similarities. But one thing I always say about IPA is, like, if you're recording a very loud, like, punk record, there are, ways that you can hide mistakes in the performance or in the mix, because there's a lot going on, and it's like, hey, you know what? Steve kind of fudged a note in the second chorus, but you can't really tell. Let's just let it ride. We don't have to go back and do it. When you're mixing something that's very sparse and quiet, all of those, sort of imperfections and stuff show up really loud. And to me, that's the difference between a lager, like our blonde lager, which is a very kind of delicate and clean beer tasting. I mean, it's all clean, but the taste of the beer is very clean, if you understand what I'm saying, versus an IPA, because the IPA has so many hops pumped into it that you might not have the best base malt. You might not have actually brewed the beer in a way. There may be something wrong with the beer, but you can't really tell, because all you're tasting is this mouthful of like pine cones. Yeah. So I tend to think that, what we do with the lagers, which is something that I wanted to do from the beginning. I love lagers. I love, German, Czech beer, Dutch beer. So I wanted to do more beers like that. And you can really tell how much care we take in all the ingredients that we buy, because we do. We get pretty expensive malt for our beers, and malt is something that in American brewing, I think, has sort of fallen by the wayside with all the attention that's paid to hops.
Wow, there you go. What's up with the you did like a 4-4 session ale. Now a session just means that it's not a lighter beer. It's just the session just mean it's like less alcohol volume. Is that what a session is? Yeah,
pretty much exactly. So something that you can have like a drinking session with.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, we did. What happened was we had an IPA, and then we did the 4-4 session IPA. We loved the flavor on the session IPA with the reduced alcohol content. But what we were seeing as some of the most popular beers in the market at the time were full-bodied IPAs at around like the 6.5-7% ABV. So we went back to the drawing board, and we came up with the Sea Dragon IPA, which was somewhat based on the 4-4 session IPA, and it came out great. And it was a winner, and people loved the beer, people loved the name. It really sort of elevated the brand when we launched that beer. And the two were so similar that one of them had to die, and it was just an easy choice to go with Sea Dragon, and it's become our top seller.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, it's a delicious beer. As far as like you were saying, how it like the Sea Dragon caught on, the name is cool, your logo is cool. Like, who comes up with like the brand or the look for it? Do you work with like a local designer? Is it something you come up with yourself?
So the logo itself, so we started calling the logo a Sea Dragon because we were describing it to people and calling it a seahorse with wings, and it was just a mouthful. So actually our head brewer, Jay Ash, was like, hey, let's call it a Sea Dragon. Cool, we love it. Perfect. Makes sense. Awesome. So that was maybe like a year before we had a beer brand called Sea Dragon. But how we got the logo was, when we were thinking of concepts, I kind of walked around Asbury Park and snapped some pictures of cool things around Convention Hall and the arcade and the carousel and stuff. They've got like the King Neptune faces and mermaids, blah, blah, blah. So, they have these seahorses in profile with wings in the arcade way up top if you look. So I sent all these pictures to a designer named Brandon Reich, who's based out of Ohio. But I met him through Bob. He does logo design for Fall Out Boy. He did a Nine Inch Nails logo. He's done like a lot of really cool stuff.
Wow.
So I sent him kind of a dossier of like cool Asbury Park images, and he glommed onto that one. And the final logo that he sent was actually the first round that he sent us. That was the first thing I got from him was that, and I was like, "Yo, it's done. You're done. You got it."
I love that. I love it when you don't have to keep going back and forth. You're just like, "All right, perfect, done." They're like, "Well, we could tweak it." I'm like, "No, you're done. That's it." That's great, man. I mean, how did you? It just, wow, what a story! Like you seem like an easygoing guy. I don't know you very well, but you seem like an easygoing guy, and all these things kind of. You were like prepared. Obviously, you know, there's a level of intelligence one needs to get a law degree. Thank God. And you know, you had this.
Surprised.
I can go get one. Sweet. You know, and you had this foresight with Asbury Park and with the beer and everything. Now, how did you come across 810 Sewell Ave? Like, how did you find that spot? Did you work with like a local real estate agent, or you know, because it's really nondescript, you wouldn't even know it was there unless you knew, you know, the beer was there, basically.
I looked at every single building in Asbury Park, like from, you know, like a place that's falling down to the friggin' police station. Like seriously, I looked at every single building in Asbury Park. And this was one of the first ones that we looked in. It used to be occupied by Flexcraft, which is an injection molding plastic company that was moving. And, you know, it's one of those things where the second you set foot in a place and look at it, you're like, this is it. This is where the brewery goes. And I knew that, and it didn't work out at first. And a couple other things happened. And, you know, we were looking at the Studebaker building pretty, you know, in detail because that's such a cool building. And then just the way life happens, all of a sudden, you know, the owners came back to us and said, if you're still interested in that space, you know, it may be available. So we leased it with an option to purchase. We exercised that option within a year of being in the building. And, you know, now I feel like the block is situated in a great place where, you know, the next kind of round of development or whatever, the next kind of, you know, cool block to open up is going to be this one. And I think that the brewery is sort of, you know, the linchpin of that happening.
Heck yeah. I mean, so all these things were working out. You got all your ducks in a row. You kind of figured it out. You got a good logo. Wonderful. And, you know, as far as going back to, you know, the laws changing, was like, you know how there's like big pharma? Is there like big beer? Were big like corporations of beer, like were big beer companies getting in the way of being able to open up craft breweries? Or why did the laws change? And who, you know, how did that all happen?
Yeah, so New Jersey was really like one of the last states in the country to sort of modernize their craft brewing laws. And yeah, so big beer companies, sure, distributors, the Restaurant Association. Essentially, New Jersey has a very antiquated system of liquor laws where you need to purchase a privately held liquor license. And as you might have heard, in a city like Asbury Park, they go for, you know, upwards of $700,000-$800,000. So naturally, when someone spends that much on an asset like a liquor license, to hear that a company like mine could open up down the street without having to purchase one of those and sell beer, you are protective of that asset. So there was a lot of pushback from the retail license holders saying, this isn't fair. This guy's going to open up a brewery and be able to sell beer. So that's why, you know, there was sort of a compromise where, okay, well, you have to receive a tour before you drink in our tasting room, which is still the case. I think that we sort of managed an eloquent way to satisfy that requirement.
Yeah, you just walk in.
Yeah, you come in the front door, you walk through the brewery with the educational mural, and then you're at the bar, boom, you took a tour.
Yeah.
Which the ABC has said that that's fine.
Cool.
But yeah, so there was a lot of give and take. So we're not allowed to sell any kind of food. We're not allowed to, you know, do a lot of things that a bar would do in terms of having sports or like a pool table or something. So yeah, I mean, the pushback, I would say not probably not so much from, like AB InBev or Miller Coors Molson themselves, but through some of their agents that really want to protect their, bread and butter clients, like the bars and restaurants that have these retail licenses that were upset about the new laws. But I think the longer we coexist together, they see that there's room for everybody, and we are definitely like it's a niche industry. So I'm not going to compete with Bar A in any meaningful way. And for me, it's more important for me to have a draft line there and just be represented. So I think we're going to see New Jersey becoming more in step with the rest of the country in terms of those laws.
That's cool. I mean, recently there was you kind of touched on it a little bit, but there was this issue with and I think was it the governor that stepped in at the time? Like I can't remember exactly what happened, but there was a problem where they didn't want you to have like events like inside the brewery, or you had to limit that, and then it changed. Like what happened? What was the what came of all that?
Yeah, well, I think what happened was the original the law as it's written is pretty vague, so they haven't changed the law yet. There's been no actual law adapted. What the ABC can do is issue regulations, so it's a little bit different. But essentially, the former chairman of the ABC issued a special ruling with a lot of very specific and very complex laws on you need to have a permit to do this, and you can't have yoga, and you can have TVs, but they can't show live sports. You can only show pre-recorded, whatever. So, and a lot of people pushed back against that, and it didn't make a ton of sense, a lot of them, and some of it seemed somewhat arbitrary. So the governor did step in at that point and speak to them. They said, all right, well, we're going to take some time to review this. And they did issue new regulations, and it requires permits for certain things. But, we try to, we walk the line. Whatever they say we're allowed to do, we'll do it. And like I mentioned to you, we're sort of, we're on the ABC's good side in the sense that what they envisioned a brewery doing is what we do. So we manufacture, we distribute. I'm here to provide products to the retail license holders to sell in their establishments. And then on top of that, yeah, it's cool for people to come by and have tours and do stuff. And, for us, we've had some music in here after the old lanes closed. There was sort of a vacuum for places where you could have like a punk show or just any kind of like weird sort of avant-garde thing. If you weren't able to book it at a place like the Saint, who does the same thing and they do it great, we could host something like that here. So, we kind of filled that void, and we'll see what happens going forward. It's, the coronavirus thing has definitely completely altered the landscape. And I think that we're all just sort of anxious to see how it goes from here and what it looks like.
Was that always like a, obviously you're enmeshed in music. You've played with a lot of bigger acts that are local. You know people in the music industry. You've had music industry, business people invest in your business. Was having that, having a music, I don't want to say a music venue, but you definitely do have people play music. There's definitely more of a punk vibe in there. Like, was that always kind of something that you wanted to have be a part of the brewery, or did it just kind of work out that way?
No, yeah, it definitely just worked out that way. I mean, one thing was I had all of this equipment. I was like cohabitating with someone, and I had all this stuff in this house. And, she was like, can you just bring that stuff to the brewery, please, and get it out of here? And it's like, sure, yeah, I can do that. But no, actually, the first thing that happened was, so there was a ruling where it said, okay, the ABC says that live music is permissible in a tasting room. And, whether they meant a guy playing acoustic in the corner or what they said was live music is permissible. And at that time, one of my friends who promotes shows lost their venue in Belmar. And all of a sudden, she had all of these shows that she had booked and was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And, we just kind of ran into each other at a bar, and we're having a beer. And she's like, yeah, I mean, I got these shows booked and some of them are really cool. And I was like, well, I'm pretty sure that we can have them at my place if you want. So that was sort of like the impetus for getting shows in there. And then, every time we had a good show, I would set aside a couple $100 to improve the sound a little bit, and, maybe put up some like acoustic tiles so that it wasn't so boomy and yada, yada, yada. And then by the end of it, it's like, yeah, it sounds pretty good in here. And we got approached by like some really cool bands, and Joe Polito, who does the New Jersey Pop Punk Archive, he helped us out booking a lot of bands. But, we had Snail Mail was in here. Beach Rats had their first show ever anywhere at the brewery. And, there's a 100 bands that I'm leaving out that have played here that just made it such like a cool vibe. And it has like a basement show feel. There's no stage or anything. There's no like permanent, equipment set up to call it like a venue. It's just sort of like a DIY place to have cool shows, but it sounds really good, and it's got the best beer in New Jersey.
Yeah, I two favorite shows. Whenever Cheap Horse plays there, that's my buddy John's band. Love that band. And then Mike Merrill did a goth night there, which if anyone knows how to tell if it's a successful goth night, it's when actual goths show up. And I was there, and there were people looking sullen and pale and all black, and I was like, "You did it, Mike. This is a goth night." Those are two of my favorites, two of my most memorable ones. And I like the fact because as I get older, I like the fact that you guys kind of close early because like you could go early, hang out, and then it shuts down at what time is it shut down? 10, 11? What time do you guys got to like cut the music?
Yeah, it depends. Like if it's a Saturday or something, no matter what, it's a hard curfew at 11. So you'll never be at Asbury Park Brewery past 11. But usually it's 10. We're usually mopping by 10.
Yeah, I love personally. I love that. But me and
you have a kid at home.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and then I could tell my wife. I could just be like, "Look, I'm going to the show. XYZ buddy's playing, and it closes. So I'm not going to be out too late. Just have a couple. It's fine." And me and Aaron have talked about this before. I think we were talking about it last week, but we were curious to know where does a podcast fit into your brewery, and could we do a podcast at the brewery? Is that legal? And obviously, when we all get wiped down and everything's clean, is that a possibility at some point in the future?
Absolutely, awesome. Absolutely love to have you guys. Sounds great in there in the tasting room. I'm in my office for this because I wanted to show off my law degree and my London Calling posters. It's like, I'm a cool lawyer though. You know what I mean?
Are you still like practicing law? Like in what venue? Like in what avenue were you going to pursue it? And is it the same one now?
Yeah, so I mean, it was mostly like contract law. So I would do commercial transactions. Contracts, I would help people, set up their businesses, their corporations, LLCs, that kind of thing. And then do some municipal stuff like for friends. So, a couple people that were arrested at the protest last week, I'm representing pro bono.
Oh, wow.
With some of their charges. So that's, activism, human rights is also a really big part of the brewery. Right now, during Pride Month, we're selling our Pride t-shirts and donating a portion of the proceeds to Garden State Equality. But that's as much a part of our DNA at the brewery as music is, with the Black Lives Matter thing, we're very much a part of that. We don't necessarily disclose what we donate and who we donate it to, but it's something that's really important to us. And personally, like I said, I'm donating my time to people that I feel were wrongly arrested at the protests. And, we don't call it a LGBT rights thing. We don't call it a Black Lives Matter. We call it a human rights thing. So if you're a human being, we believe that you are deserving of rights and dignity. So that's as big a part as our company as anything else.
Dude, that's incredible. That's great that you're doing that and that you're so involved in the community, making yourself totally local. You're very totally local. And I'll have to talk to you about my intellectual property rights when it comes to this podcast, because I don't think I have any. Hopefully somebody else will come along and take my totally local podcast away from me for some reason. But this has been super informative, dude. You've got so many layers to you. I'm gonna have to drink a beer. I'll have to catch you when I have one beer, because after 2 or 3, I get a little more chatty. But I'd love to like dig into more of this. You're like an onion, man. I'm peeling the layers back, and there's just more and more going on. I can't thank Aaron enough for setting this up. Aaron, do you have anything to add to this titillating conversation?
No, I think it's great. I think everything that Jeff does, I think everything that the brewery represents is awesome. I'm thirsty.
But
I'm thirsty. There's no blondes except for my wife down here in North Carolina.
we gotta work on that.
I should have brought some with me, but it was really just juice boxes and stuff for the kids.
Well,
But
hopefully we get distributed
I'm
down in North Carolina soon.
Yeah. Fingers crossed.
nice. That's awesome. But I think it's great, and I think doing a live podcast from the brewery,
Hell yeah.
pint by pint, will be a heck of a lot of fun, man.
A little tasting action. That sounds good. Are you like? Does it help to know other breweries in the area? Do you like stay in touch with them? Are you guys all cool, or is it like the Sharks versus the Jets, like where you guys are just like having switchblade fights in like alleys and stuff? Are you guys all cool with each other?
No, we're cool. I mean, it's like anything. It's for the most part, everyone's cool. There's a couple assholes floating around, but it's like anything else. But everyone has pretty much been cool.
As far as Aaron, like the insurance for like a brewery, is it similar to what would be recommended for like a restaurant or for other businesses? Like, is it the same kind of thing where like you'd want the same kind of coverage? Is there any differences in it?
Yeah, no, great question. There's some differences, and I lost like 20 seconds. I had a call come in, and I had to send them right to voicemail. But as far as the insurance of the brewery, we do the same thing as we would do for any type of manufacturer, small business owner, including the liquor liability, the employment practices, everything that would be involved in a good, solid business owner's insurance package. Is what we have set up for the brewery. We partner with actually a brewery specialty company. So we have this company, Cedar Risk, who we partner with to insure a couple of different breweries, and the distillery in Long Branch is also insured through Cedar Risk. They have some access, and they insure hundreds of breweries up and down the Eastern Seaboard. So we're able to get really good rates and put good packages together and make sure we have the right coverage in there, so that if a situation arises, we have the defense and the coverage for it.
So, I thank you both. Aaron, thanks for setting this up. As always, LG Insurance, thank you so much. Jeff, thanks for spending time, doing this. What can we expect? Like once the apocalypse has cooled down a little bit and we get like some time to breathe, what can we expect from Asbury Park Brewery, like, in the future when things kind of, obviously nothing's going to get back to normal. It's always going to be some semblance of what we've expect normalcy to be, but like what can we expect from the brewery going into the future?
Yeah, so I mean, one thing I would say is expect like a larger presence and a larger footprint of the brand, which is what we've been working on this past year. And we lost a lot of good time this year accomplishing that, but it's a marathon, not a sprint. So we're committed to putting our flag in as the beer of New Jersey, the beer of live music in New Jersey. It's any event that is going on around the state that has something cool going on, we want to be a part of, and that's sort of like how we've been approaching it since we opened. So when we are able to get open, we look forward to having people over on the loading dock, have some beers, have a little live music out there,
nice.
Hang out and experience our lovely parking lot along the train tracks in Asbury Park. But on top of that, just expect to see more and more about Asbury Park. And, cool. We're hopefully every time you fly out of Newark Airport, you have a Sea Dragon while you're waiting for your plane. And, just getting some of those big accounts that we're proud of, Prudential Center, the airport, Rutgers stadiums are now able to serve alcohol. So they've picked up our brands and just trying to go bigger and better every year.
Wow. Well, I mean, thank you so much, guys. This has been I don't know, this has been a good time for me. I really can't wait to go out and have some beers over at Asbury Park Brewery. I'm looking forward to the Naive Melody. I love a good sour. Try the stout. Well, when can we expect the stout to come back?
Probably end of summer. Usually, once it starts getting hot, we stop producing stout. It just doesn't start selling until, and who knows? I mean, usually, I say football season, people start buying the stout, but who knows when that's going to happen? So when it starts getting a little cooler, when the frost is on the pumpkin, that's when the stout is pumping.
Oh, wow, that's great. And he writes lyrics too, folks. Totally Local Podcast, colorful characters, local businesses in and around the Jersey Shore area. Again, we had Jeff Plate from Asbury Park Brewery. Thank you so much. Aaron Levine from LG Insurance. As always, thank you so much. Guys, check us out. Totally_local_podcast, totallylocalpodcast.com, or check us out on Facebook where you're watching us right now live. Go check out the video videos on YouTube. We love Monmouth and Ocean County. So that's it, guys. Have a great rest of your week, and enjoy
All right.
enjoy the steel drum.